Yes, guys, hello and welcome back to the Spurs-Related YouTube channel and podcast. Hope everyone is doing very well. Today, we are covering some transfer news, but also around the match that took place today in Hong Kong. Champions again. What can I say? Lifting more trophies. It's becoming a bit boring. No, but jokes aside, we did beat Arsenal 1-0 over in Hong Kong. And there was a lot of positives to take out of that performance. And we'll dissect exactly what was good, all the standout points for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoy. As always, guys, really appreciate all the support that's gone into the channel lately. Keep on smashing that like button. Keep on smashing that subscribe button and turning on those notification bells to ring in when we go live next. But as you can see, I'm joined alongside Sam, aka Spurs Undercover on X, who watched the game in full. I didn't actually get a chance to watch the whole game, but Sam, you watched the whole game. Firstly, mate, how are you doing? And secondly, were you impressed with today's performance?
Yeah, well, maybe the two go kind of hand in hand with how I'm feeling and how I feel about the performance. I'm pretty good, thanks, James. I hope you're well. And yeah, I mean, I watched the game. Obviously, I was at work, so I sort of was cross-eyed looking at one screen and another. But for me, I was quite impressed with it. I can understand why people might think it was potentially a bit boring. But for me, that was probably the only game so far that we've played where I've been impressed with not only the defensive system, which I can now see is very clearly starting to be put together, and you can see the patterns of play that the defenders are making, which just weren't evident under the previous tenure. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't just say and. It feels like I'm distancing myself from him. But no, I just think that
We're allowed to talk about him.
Yeah, no, big up, Ange. He'll be a legend forever for bringing us the trophy. But I'm happy he's gone. All jokes aside, but for me, I don't know if you want to. I know you've got the stats. If you want to get it up,
sure.
For me,
just quickly. I mean, that is just what photo that is.
It is. I've thrown a couple on my Instagram.
Lifting the HERBALGY trophy. HERBALGY trophy winners. You will never sing that. We'll have a bit of that. I know it's just funny that Arsenal had to watch us lift a trophy and finish runners up again. They got to finish in second. I've got to hand it to them. Yeah, as you're saying, Sam, these are the stats. First half. For me, I think, especially Thomas Frank saying after in his interview that he thought the first half was more positive. I don't know what you were going to mention on this, but obviously Spurs on the right-hand side there, 51% of the ball, 0 big chances, but very even in terms of possession, very even in terms of the passing and the tackles. And yeah, I think, what do you make of the first half? Did you think we had a better first half than second half, Sam?
Yeah, so I think that it kind of the first half started in Arsenal's favor. I think they were clearly the more settled. I think they'd been in Hong Kong for a number of days before us as well to kind of acclimatize to the whole humidity. Because having been to Hong Kong once myself, it is extremely, extremely humid. It's hard to breathe at times. Not because the air is dirty; it's just heavy, So the first sort of 8 minutes, I'd say they were pretty all over us, and that one big chance, if I'm not mistaken, will be they had a corner that came out to Odegaard, who volleyed it, and as it was going towards goal, Saliba got a flick on, which and it sort of whistled past the post. I haven't actually seen it in depth to see how close it was, but it did look pretty close in real time. So I think that's what that chance would be. Other than that, I can't really remember any serious chances in the first half that they had. Whereas for us, we had the sort of catalyst for our performance in that first half was the Pedro Porro corner that I saw from this. I was very intrigued with how much they're clearly working on the attacking set pieces, because last year, after Vicario started getting, messed about by other players, we started putting Maddison on their goalkeeper. And it's just not the same when, you've got like 5'9" Madison standing in front of a 6'2+ player who can use their arms. But we had Van der Ven there, and, I wouldn't want to be trying to push past Van der Ven. And there was a handful of moments where Raya just couldn't get past Van der Ven. And one of these incidents was in like the 9th minute when Porro curled in a corner, it missed everyone and clipped the inside of the post. And from that, I think Richarlison sort of tried to stab it home, and it kind of got stuck at Saliba's feet. They managed to clear it. But from that moment, we started to push a little bit. It was kind of weird. It felt like a game of two teams that were kind of looking for set pieces. Because we were seeing that our set pieces were obviously working well against Arsenal. And and obviously we know what they're like. They live for the corner. They celebrate it more than a goal. But moving on, I just felt like there was two players for me that were very, very, very good and quite a bit better than the rest of the players on our team, at least on the pitch. And that was the man of the match, which was Pape Sarr. Thought he was everywhere. Looked composed, looked comfortable on the ball, and was just eating up challenges in the midfield, perfectly timed challenges, most of them. And he was just providing that energy in the midfield that we really needed, and we haven't really seen enough of from him since a few seasons ago when he first broke into the team. We see it often, but not enough, I think. But that I was very, very impressed. And then the other player that I thought really stood out was Jed Spence, who arguably could have also been man of the match, because I mean, he literally from the moment the game started, he was on Saka like a rash, and he even, I think he posted an Instagram like post where he's just Saka's on the floor and he's like sort of. And Jed's just coming away with the ball. It's like he had a very, very good game as well. So he definitely deserved a mention.
Let's break down the ratings. Hopefully that's big enough on your screens. Certainly is on the bench players that came off. Hopefully if you guys are on TV or whatever, you can see the ratings on the right. But yeah, as you've said here, Sam, according to SofaScore, obviously, not the official ratings, from, wherever you may get your source, it's SofaScore. But Pedro Porro, 7.7, Jed Spence, 7, Bergvall, 7.3, Sarr, 7.9, as you said, man of the match. Probably the one that stands out for me in terms of maybe being a negative today is Wilson Odobert. So maybe we'll come onto your thoughts on how he played, Sam, because he has had a lot of critics in terms of, his ability and how he can really, get into this Tottenham team, obviously with ever-growing sort of wingers about, and the likes of Kudus, obviously Johnson's still about, Tell, and Sonny, if he sticks around, where does Odobert fit in? Obviously Ange seemed to favour him at times, but maybe perhaps not quite at the level we're looking for. Is that fair to say, Sam, or am I being a bit harsh on Odobert there?
Look, I mean, he didn't, set the world alight with his performance. But what I think he did do was show in time he can be sculpted by Frank to become more lethal in his output. Because I actually thought on the ball he was fairly decent. And he also had a chance that clipped like Ben White's heel and hit the post. So he could have potentially had a goal today. He was tidy in moments. I did say to you before, I thought he was tidy in moments, but overall, I can understand why he had the lowest rating. But even a 6.3, I think it looks bad because it's in orange, but it's still above average, and we're still early on. I think he's not played that many minutes, if I'm correct. I feel like he hasn't even really played much at all. But it's obviously, as I said before, like the climate out there, as well as being not match fit. I think that all plays into it. So I didn't think he had a shocker by any means. So as long as there was no shockers, which there wasn't, I'm kind of happy with everyone's performance. I do agree with Porro also being really good. I think that the reason he's got a higher rating than Spence there is because he was involved quite a bit in the attacking third as well, and as also keeping a clean sheet. And the other player I thought was also really good that maybe isn't reflected as much because he didn't get any assists or goals was Kudus. Just seeing, I feel like I've seen a lot of interviews with, when I've seen the club interview, like David Ginola, for example, they mentioned about him being a player that would really get you off your seat. And like there was always a moment as the ball was approaching Ginola that you could hear the seats clapping back because everyone was standing up. He said that he remembered that as a kid, like from seeing that. But we haven't had a player like that. And I feel like we've often had players that, when they get the ball, they're going to do something, right? And we haven't had that player really for the last couple seasons. I know that Son is that player for us, but, we all know that his form's taken a dip, so it's not quite the same anymore. But Kudus, the amount of players, I joked on another stream that I feel like in the first 3 games that Kudus has played, he's beat more players in those games than Johnson has in his whole career, because he's just
no way. That can't be a stat.
No, that's not a stat. I'm saying that's how I feel.
No, yeah, I was going to say, if that was actually a stat, that is incredible. Sam, let's move it on. I'm conscious of time because as per the title of the video and the thumbnail, I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for transfer updates. Guys, we're going to get into the transfer updates in 5-10 minutes around Kolo Muani, around Van Hecke, and around Paulinha. But we'll come on to that. Obviously, Callum's in here saying, DJ Randall, I'm here for it. Spurs Diehard saying, good evening, James, Sam et al. Hope you're doing well, my friend. And Paul Weeks is asking, how did Arsenal get on today? Well, let's just say they finished runners-up yet again. Rich is saying, just nice to have a coach who isn't tactically inept. Sam, I know you weren't the biggest Ange Postecoglou fan, certainly at the end, but we can maybe touch on that in a bit. Paul's also saying, I don't understand why. If we're going for Palhinha, who I like, why are we going for just a straight loan? Again, we'll come on to the details on the latest update on that. But guys, there's about 100 of you in the house, a bit of an impromptu, off the cusp sort of live stream, and still pulling in some great numbers. Really appreciate all the support. Please do keep smashing the thumbs up. It helps us massively, massively in terms of the algorithm. Keep subscribing to Spurs Related. Keep hitting your notification bell on so you never miss us going live. I know I'm sure a lot of you get bored of me saying this, but honestly, it's free to do so, and it really does help out the channel and helps me get on great guests like Sam and keep progressing, going live daily. So I really appreciate all your support if everyone can do that. And if you are in a position to do so and you want to skip the queue on the chat and ask a question for our panel every single time, for example, today, there is the super chat option, which is available for as cheap as, I think, 99 pence. So if you do want to skip the queue and get your question answered, then please do feel free to also support the chat, as well as who's going to be our first Spurs-related member. Still no members, Sam. We've been having memberships for around 3 or 4 days now. So if anyone wants to become our first member, you'd be on that Hall of Fame. But anyway, enough of that, Sam. Let's go back to what we were talking about in terms of the ratings. And I wanted to pick up a few on firstly on the second half of the game, obviously when Johnson came on, Tell came on, and then even later in the game, we saw a few minutes of James Maddison, Heung-min Son, Yves Bissouma, and Archie Gray. Any one of those ones on the bench stood out? I mean, looks like an average match rating all round of about 6.6. But anyone do you think should have been higher than that? Because I saw a compilation of James Maddison passes for 5 minutes and everyone's saying how incredible it is to see him back. Of course, it's great to see him back, but he's very quick with his feet, very, very great passer of the ball, of course. What did you make of any of these cameo appearances?
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately for the defenders at least, we kept a clean sheet. And I think that the biggest reason why the performance kind of dropped off in the second half was because we took off basically all of our physical players and we took off Kudus. And, we were playing with our effective second string without players like Dom Solanke, without players like Destiny, for example. So it just felt like we were kind of hanging on. It reminded me a little bit, and obviously not as stressful, but it reminded me a little bit of like the last 15 minutes of the Europa League final as well, where we were just kind of under a bit of a siege. And
I'd love to have known my blood pressure and heart rate at those last 15 minutes. It wasn't as stressful as that, Sam. Come on.
No, of course it wasn't close. But in terms of the actual, Or if you remember the you remember the Brentford game where we beat them 2-0, and everyone was thinking we were going to get pummeled by them, and we literally like parked the bus and just held on for this 2-0 win. It really felt like they were just, they brought on Gyökeres and they brought on more attackers. Obviously, they took off players like Saka, but they brought on more energy, and we struggled to deal with that for a number of reasons, fitness being one, I'm sure, and also just not having the right kind of first. You can see that 10 shots to 1, although obviously we had a big chance. And yeah, overall, I was pretty happy with it. I felt like
we were just camped. Sorry, Sam. We were just camped in our box for that second half, like in our own box. It was like they were trying to break through essentially a low block, which we were playing, and they couldn't do it. And that's why they didn't have they didn't have a big chance according to these stats. And as you said, yeah, and we had the big chance. I'm sure you'll remind me of what that one was. But I mean, it works. It works. It wasn't pretty. I think Thomas Frank said something similar himself. He would have preferred it if we weren't camped inside our own half. But actually, we're going to have to do that against teams that have higher caliber of players to us. I'm not saying necessarily Arsenal, but we have to be realistic. They do have a very good team. Sometimes when we go 1 or 2 up, we're going to have to play a bit like that, a bit anti-Ange boy, if you like, this season, don't you think?
No, I do, and as I said to you sort of off screen, I think that some people, or there might be a decent portion of the fan base that thinks, what a load of shit that game was. We managed to score a 45-yard strike from the halfway line, which we haven't even touched on, which was an unbelievable goal. Probably would have been a foul in the Premier League, because I do think that Lewis Skelly was tripped. But I mean, Pap literally just got the ball at his feet, looked up, and before he even had a chance to think, he'd already kicked it, and the ball was in the net. Great technique. And the one chance that we created, I believe we had a corner, and the ball came back out to Tell, who took the corner, and he put in quite a nice cross actually on his left foot, I believe. And it landed literally right on Van de Ven's head, like on the 6-yard box. And Van de Ven headed it wide from literally like 5 or 6 yards. It should have been a goal. And that would have obviously sealed the game. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. And you can't really blame Mickey, because it just is what it is. It's a friendly.
Sure.
So, but as I said, I was pretty happy overall. I can understand why people would be concerned that, we still aren't really creating that many chances. I mean, what was that for the whole game? 6 chances we created. One big chance. Because I was going to say, I can't really remember any like one-on-ones or anything like that. So, we did clearly struggle. I thought Richie was pretty average, to be honest. Although, as I said, when we took him off, the physicality up front wasn't there. But I feel like Solanke would have made a much better impact in the game.
But do you not think you say about Richie? And I'm not going to sit here and sort of defend that point, but I think also we maybe went a bit more defensive and weren't winning the ball as much in midfield when we took off. We took off some of the midfield as well, right? When we took off, defensively as well. Romero, obviously a big physicality. Van de Ven then went off in the 77th. Bergval in the 77th as well. You could argue why is Basuma not more physical in midfield at that point of the game. But I mean, listen, I think the positives are Sarr. I'd love to show the goal. I just was scared to do the copyright, but I'm sure you guys have seen it. If you haven't, go and check out the goal. Screamer from the halfway line, as Sam said. The technique is ridiculous, and it was so quick. It all happened so quick. See, Raya made a terrible mistake. Ball got picked up, and it was in the net within seconds. It reminded me a bit of what was that? It was Harry Kane in the preseason against Juventus.
It was against Juventus, yeah.
Yeah, it was similar to that one. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I wanted to come on to talking. Actually, I got to mention this one before we move on. This moment, guys, if you haven't seen it, so Porro had the ball. He's about to take a throw in, and Arteta's outside of his technical area, as per, pretty much on the pitch. He's about to take the throw in, and Porro pushes him back, and there was a bit of an exchange there, which was amusing. Why does he? How does he get away with just being outside his technical area every time? I mean, I don't want to don't want to talk about Arsenal and Arteta too much, but that made me laugh. That moment.
But
And
come on, look where he is though. Like he's leaning onto the pitch about 3 yards away from where Porro's taking his throw in the direction that he's throwing it. It's like what? I know it's a friendly, but I mean that's a definite booking. You know what I mean?
100%. I don't understand how he always gets away with it. The other moment which I didn't put on a slide was when Romero nutmegged Havertz, and then he went flying in and took out Jed Spence.
Yeah.
I mean Havertz's day wasn't great, was it? That was entertaining. Romero flicked it through it, nutmegged him, didn't he? Brilliant stuff. So there was a few highlights. There was a few moments that did make me smile, but at the end of the day, guys, the one that makes me smile the most is that Heung-min Son lifts another trophy, and it's at the expense of a few Arsenal tears, which was nice. A bit of Arsenal fan TV meltdown as well tonight. It might be worth a watch. I think they've gone back to their classic meltdowns, which is interesting to view. We haven't even talked about Gyökeres. I don't really care about the guy, to be honest, but I've seen a lot of people say that he had a bit of a stinker. He was only on for 15 minutes, but maybe he'll be the flop of the year. Hopefully, maybe someone will clip me up and he's not going to be. But anyway, let's talk about transfers, Sam, because I'm sure a lot of the people, guys, if you want more about the Arsenal game, perhaps we'll do another breakdown tomorrow. It's still 100 of you in the house. Probably want to learn about Kolo Muani and what the link is there. Guys, keep smashing the like button, keep subscribing to Spurs Related if you are new, and keep ringing those bells, and maybe super chats are welcome, and memberships as well. If you want to be the first member, get into that Hall of Fame. But Sam, let's talk about transfers, and let's move on to Kolo Muani of PSG, on loan at Juventus last season. Had a very good spell there. Got some decent numbers, actually, Sam, at Juventus last year. Made an instant impact as the number 9. Kind of stepped in, I think, for an injured Vlahovic, and certainly was in favour of him. Firstly, mate, what do you think of this player? And secondly, do you think that we could pull this one off? Because according to Santi JFM, again, guys, bear with me. Take these sources with a pinch of salt, but it's food for thought. It's food for thought, because we're living off scraps here, guys. We need to be linked with more players. Obviously, we're coming to the Paulinha one, which is a bit more concrete, according to Football London. But apparently no agreement yet with Juventus, but talks are underway. The negotiations between Juve and PSG stalled for weeks, as I believe Juventus were trying to sign him on a permanent deal. Sam, do you think we can come and hijack this one? And what do you think of Kolo Muani? Because I think he's actually a pretty underrated player, to be perfectly honest. If you look at his numbers, last season at Juventus, 8 goals in 16 matches, goal every other game. And at Frankfurt in 2022-2023, he got 15 goals, 11 assists in 32 matches, almost a goal contribution a game. Firstly, mate, what do you think of this player? And secondly, would you like to see it happen?
I would, yeah. I think that he gets a bit of a bad rap because everyone makes fun of him for missing that chance in the World Cup final. But I mean, yeah, I see it all the time, and I still think that yes, he could have maybe squared it, but in that moment, as a striker, you're one-on-one with the goalkeeper, you're taking the shot, and other than an unbelievable save from Emi Martinez, they're lifting the World Cup trophy, And I think it's kind of a similar one to Kudus in terms of he's kind of fallen off since being a bright spark. Maybe he hasn't, but maybe it's just hopefully just he lost his way a little bit, but can come back. And people may be thinking, he's not as good as he was when he started, blah, blah, blah. But it could be one that ends up, being quite a good bit of business. I've not seen any prices banded about for what they want for him, but I don't know if you got the second tweet as well for this. Because yeah, exactly. I was just going to say the fact that we've said, I don't know how good these sources are, right? But the fact that multiple sources have reported on it, that for me, makes me a little bit more trusting of the initial rumor, because it feels like we've got a couple it's not just coming from one place. 2 different media organizations have made comments about it.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is a bit of substance there. And let's see how this develops with the likes of Fabrizio Romano tomorrow. Hopefully, we have a bit of a bomber from him. Maybe David Ornstein, one of the more tier one sort of trusted sources, as you said, Sam. It is good that there's a couple of different sources reporting on that. And you would like to think that we are linked with some players, given that the season starts in 2 weeks, Super Cup in less than 2 weeks now. Where's the players? Where's the money being spent? Where's the Morgan Gibbs-White 60 million gone? Has that gone back to, fund the stage for the concerts? Like, what's going on? Where is the signings? And I said at the start of July I wouldn't lose my head, and we then got in within 48 hours. Mohamed Kudus, here we go. Morgan Gibbs-White, here we go. Bang, one of them happened. Bang, one of them didn't. We wasted 2 or 3 weeks trying to sort Morgan Gibbs-White. It didn't happen. But now let's see the links. And the one that's more concrete today is that, according to some sources, including Football London, Paulinha, the number 6 of Bayern Munich, formerly of Fulham, there is apparently talks going on for a loan move rather than a permanent move. Now, a couple of things here, Sam, because we discussed this offline. Firstly, why a loan? And secondly, you said about a price that you wouldn't go for, and he's of course 30 years old now. So what value would you pay if we were signing him on a permanent? What do you think of this loan move, according to some sources?
Well, the initial rumors when we were first linked to him was that they'd be willing to sell for between 25 and 30 million euros. And I was thinking, 20 to 25 million for a player that seems to be surplus to requirements 1 year after signing there. It's not exactly it's not good sort of shop window kind of behavior, right? That this player that you're trying to sell is basically known that you don't want him anymore after a season. So I'm down for it at the right price, but I also I'm more than happy with a loan because, as you said, he's 30. He's just had a season. I don't know how many appearances he got last season, but he just had a season of not playing as regularly as he had been in the Premier League. 2 years later, basically, and it could be a risk to sign someone. He's going to want pretty big wages, I would think, to come to us. And I've seen a lot of people's concern about him that he's not progressive enough, and he's maybe stiff on the ball. But as I've said in other streams, I think that his strength is the fact that we don't have a player anywhere near his sort of profile.
Yeah.
And
I feel like we have a lot of ammunition in the number 8 and probably the number 10, but not the number 6. And so Thomas Frank, who plays a double pivot in midfield, we need that anchor man as part of that. We just don't have it, do we, Sam? I mean, the closest thing in our team to a number 6, Bentancur, maybe Basuma. But again, it's not natural number 6s, not natural players that could even switch and play as the sole CDM in that setup. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to say. Even if he's not the most technically gifted player, he is very gifted in a specific role that potentially, we don't know what Frank is going to do. But, in a game like today, Palhinha would have been a perfect addition, to just sit in front of that back four and, kick lumps out of the oncoming attackers, right?
Yeah.
And that is I feel like it's not unknown that is what he's known for, right? Playing on the line of, a very heavy challenge. He's sort of similar to Romero in that regard. You don't really know what you're going to get with him in terms of, is he going to absolutely fly in, or is he going to gracefully take it? So it'd be interesting to see what does happen. But as I said, I'm happy with a loan, and I'd lean more that way if they want 45 million for him. But if we can get him for 20 to 25, 30 at a push, but I think it would have to be rising to 30 rather than being 30 million. Then I'd be all right with that.
Sure. Well, let's see how that plays out with the value, and let's see if it turns out to be a loan move or anything in particular. Gary Bex is saying Kolo Muani is a better player than Mitrovic, but Mitrovic is a better player for Tottenham. Saw some Mitrovic links. Oh, Sam, you're shaking your head. What do you make of this?
I like Mitrovic. Yeah, I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's different enough to either of the other strikers that we've got. Even, Lancashire, if he's going to be the one that sticks around, they're all basically hold-up play strikers because none of them really have that much pace. Solanke is fairly quick, but I just think that to sign another player that's not beating the line, I feel like Kolo Muani's like physicality. I know that obviously Mitrovic is physical, but the pace and power of Kolo Muani, I think, will be more important for us personally than signing a Mitrovic, even if Mitrovic may potentially score more goals. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I just think that for the overall benefit of the team, having a runner like Muani would be better than having a hold-up player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're different types of players. I do agree. There's about 100 of you in the house still. We're going to be live for a few more minutes. We're just going to talk about Van Hecke. Before we do come off being live and talk through this Van Hecke link, guys, while it's 100 or so of you in the house, please do me a massive favor. Smash like, smash subscribe, both free to do so. Turn on the notification bells, again, free to do so you never miss us going live and you never miss a new video, which is happening daily. It's just when it drops, those of you that want to come and watch the video. And go and check out Sam on Twitter. He always comes on the channel pretty much a regular every single week at the moment. I really appreciate his time. So let's go and show him some love, get him to 100. I think you're close to 100 followers or something like that, Sam. So go and give Sam a follow. He'll follow you back and he'll chat about Spurs online with you as well. So Sam, I'll put your link in the description in a minute when we talked about Van Hecke, if that's okay. But this Van Hecke link, Brighton centre-back, according to a source in Netherlands, again, take this with a pinch of salt. Apparently Newcastle and Tottenham are interested in Jan Paul Van Hecke. Brighton's asking price for the Dutchman is £43 million, 50 million euros. It says the Seagulls are willing to make Van Hecke their highest paid player ever, but the defender's just not interested. And he dreams of playing in the Champions League and believes that with Brighton, it just won't happen. Sam, firstly, what do you think of this player? And do you think he's worth £43 million? To just give you a bit more context, he is a decent player. And he can play left centre-back, right centre-back. He's physical. He's very tall. I believe he's like 6'3". I'd have to double check that one. But he's been absolutely phenomenal for Brighton. I know how highly Brighton fans rate him. Got a couple of Brighton mates myself, and they absolutely love him. He could be just another one that goes out of the door there for £50 million. We could write a list of how many players have come out of Brighton for between 50 to £100 million. Do you like this player? Do we need him? And again, guys, pinch of salt. I might start calling it the pinch of salt segment. Obviously, it's only a tier 3 or 4 source. But would you guys in the chat whack it in the comments below? Would you like Paul Van Hecke as an option for Mickey van der Ven backup or a Romero backup if one of them gets injured? Or do you think Danzo's fine or an Archie Gray's fine or a Kotakai's fine? What do you guys think? Sam, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think it would be a hindrance to bring him in. As I said to you before, I've not seen him play like religiously, but I've always been fairly impressed with him.
Oh, have we lost Sam or have I lost signal? Let me just check. Sam's lagged out. Apologies, guys. I thought it was me, but I Oh, Sam, you're back. You're back.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
I don't know why it always does this. Like once a session, it just drops for no reason.
You're back. Anyway, what were you saying?
I was just saying, yeah, I've always been pretty impressed with him when we've played against them. He always looks very composed on the ball. And he's quite young as well, right?
Yes, he is. He's early 20s. He is 25 years old, mid-20s actually.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good age though. He's not at
Sure.
his pinnacle yet, but he's still moldable, but he's still a competent, potential rotation or potential starting, centre back. Obviously, it's all gone kind of quiet on the Romero stuff, but maybe if you read into that they're looking for a potential starting centre back, because why would you leave Brighton to come to Spurs just to sit on the bench?
That's but my concern, that is why I'm concerned, right? I was going to mention this, Sam. Sorry to jump in on your point, but if we're linked with starting centre backs or very high caliber centre backs, is this Romero Atletico Madrid thing going to spice up again, or are we reading too much into it?
Look, I think that we probably are reading too much into it, but you never know with football. I basically, maybe I was deluded, but the entire Harry Kane to Bayern saga, I was just convinced he wasn't going anywhere. And, I've seen a load of media of Romero looking like super happy now that he's back with the squad. Maybe there is that like swagger of we've just won a trophy, like we're those guys, the first, Spurs players to win it. I'm sure there must have been some sort of thought in his mind about that there potentially could, he doesn't know the club like we do. There could potentially be scope to push on and actually start competing for trophies consistently again, like we were before he came. Not that he's the reason we stopped. But yeah, I mean, it is concerning that you are looking at a first choice player. But to go back to your original question, you asked also if it was a position that we necessarily needed. And it's like, if Romero doesn't go, then I don't think it is. Even though he obviously can play on the left, I just think that we've got enough players at centre-back that it's not the preferred amount of depth, especially at left side, but we do have a decent number of players now that we need to see if they're any good, and if not, we'll ship them on and start to look at other centre-backs. But I think that there's more priority positions, one of those being a left-back, because as we mentioned in the Arsenal game earlier, that tackle from Havertz that ended up hitting Spence, that could have actually been really bad for Spence. And then what? You've got no right back cover, and you've got no left backs other than Ben Davies. So for me, the left back is arguably the most important position for us, I think, because Destiny is showing that he's turned into quite an injury-prone player, unfortunately. And then I'd probably go for a midfielder or a striker before I went for another centre-back. Because if you actually list out the players we've got that are signed to the club, whether they're here or on loan, it's like 9 players or something now. And that's a lot, and you've got to figure out what to do with those. Not a lot of those are homegrown players, so there's that complication. Obviously, Van Hecke will be another non-homegrown player. And you've got to get rid of players to bring those foreign players in. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen with Van Hecke, because you'd think that they'd want to get that done before they sold Romero, if that was going to be the case. So if we do bring Van Hecke in, you'll have to watch the space, because a Romero exit could be imminent,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if this heats up with Van Hecke, you're worried, aren't you? Because although you're bringing in a decent caliber of player, you're thinking, yeah, see you later, Cuti Romero potentially. But guys, let's not read into that too much yet. Guys, let us know what you think in the comments below on these 2 links. Kolo Muani, Randall Kolo Muani, would you take him? Jan Paul Van Hecke, would you like him if it meant Romero doesn't go and he's part of the squad? Fardin's asking, what is I think he means ideal team for Spurs after the transfer window is over? Well, for me, I think we need to strengthen the midfield. I think we need a backup left back, and I think we need potentially another forward player. But obviously, 6 is the most important. And you're saying I personally would love Vuskovic. So I'm guessing you're talking about who you want in that back line. I think for me, it's self-explanatory. It's got to be Mickey van der Ven, Christian Romero, Pedro Porro, and Udogie left back. However, Jed Spence can play left back pretty well. It has to be said. Like, there's question marks over can he play left back. Some people I've seen today on socials, they think he can be better at left back than right back. So that's also another point to make about the backup left back, Sam, is maybe Thomas Frank is content that Jed Spence is that backup left back for Udogie, and actually we don't need a backup. But then you could argue, then does that mean we need a backup right back? Who knows? I just don't think it's. I agree. I think we need a more depth in that position, but maybe he's content, and maybe that's the way of cutting costs. We know about cutting costs at Tottenham. Callum saying, who would you go for as homegrown after Morgan Gibbs-White? Yeah, because obviously that was going to solve that point. Eze still possible. For me, Eberechi Eze. I don't know what's happened with the Arsenal move, because there was some sources saying personal terms are agreed. It all went very quiet, Sam. I haven't seen anything about Eze for a few days now. Good point here from Callum. Why don't we pick up on Eze? You know, because that for me is a better. I'm not even just saying that for copium. That is genuinely a better deal than Morgan Gibbs-White, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously it solves two issues in terms of having an attacking midfielder to sort of share the burden of the creativity, but also offers another left wing position to be filled with a player who's had like 3 or 4 years of consistent Premier League experience. Basically single-handedly won Crystal Palace their FA Cup because he scored the winner in like the last 3 rounds. You know, clearly he's a big game player, and I've always liked Eze and always wanted him to come. But again, I don't feel like he's necessarily a better option or a worse option than Morgan Gibbs-White, because I don't feel like personally, to me anyway, that they're the most important positions, as I sort of have said. But I do think that both of them would be very welcome additions to the squad in terms of quality and experience. You know, players of a good age. I mean, Eze's sort of getting on a little bit. I think he'll be like 27 or 28 this year, which is odd because you just look at Eze and you think about his partnership with Elise and you think they're both like 22, you know? And I guess he plays with like a jovial spirit, you know? Like he really enjoys the game, which is nice to see. So I would be going for Eze. I think that I saw something saying that Arsenal didn't want to meet the terms of the release clause or something like that, and so the talks have stalled. But we clearly have the money, you know. We clearly have the money, and we clearly had interest before. So I have seen some stuff about Xavi Simons, but I don't know what the sources are, so I won't quote them. But I've seen people saying that potentially the reason is that we were going for Simons before we'd approached them, and then apparently we saw that Morgan Gibbs-White could potentially be done, pivoted to that, and now apparently we've turned back to the Xavi Simons. And maybe if that is true, he'd want to go to Chelsea just to spite us for turning our attention somewhere else, right? I wouldn't begrudge him for that. As much as I'll call him a scumbag at the next game, but
yeah,
you know.
Interesting, mate. Yeah, Xavi Simons. Yeah, let's see how that plans out. Again, kind of gone a bit quiet. Saw someone thought that they'd seen Xavi Simons at the Chelsea training ground today. I don't know if you saw that. No, outside the stadium, and it was just some guy that worked at the club shop. But anyway, guys, I think we're going to wrap up. There's about still nearly 100 of you watching. I really have appreciated the support today. Really appreciate all the comments going into the chat. Before you all click off the video, please do me 3 big favors. Actually 4, if that's not too much to ask. Smash like on the video. Let's get this to 100 likes at least. Smash subscribe if you have enjoyed the content and you want to stick around for more videos. If you want to watch more videos, tap the notification bell. Also free to do so. You never miss us going live. You never miss a new video. It always goes straight on your notification screen, on your phone or on your laptop. And the 4th one, before you all click off as well, please go and check out Sam, aka Spurs Undercover. You've got the app right there on Twitter, who tweets all about Spurs, as of course we all do. I think Sam, I thought stole your thunder a little bit. You're on your way to 100 followers, guys. Go and follow Sam. He'll follow you back probably. Well, I'm not going to speak for him. Maybe he'll follow you back if you're good enough. But no, I'm sure you will get a follow back, Sam. And thanks for coming on again, mate. Hope you've enjoyed it. You good? You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I have. I feel like I always want to talk about the games afterwards because I don't really have that other than my family. I don't really have any friends that are Spurs fans. They're all Gooners. and a couple of Chelsea fans mixed in. That's the life of growing up in North London, I'm afraid. We're outnumbered, but we make more noise.
Love it, mate.
Yeah,
well, anyway, no worries, mate. Always welcome on. Appreciate all the support today. Callum, always appreciate your comments, as well as, Gary Beck's in the chat, Custy, we are Spurs TV, Spurs Diehards, just to mention a few, Melton, lots of people in the chat today. Really appreciate it. If you're watching on repeat, again, please do the same. Like, subscribe, noties on, and we'll see you again very, very soon for another episode on Spurs Related. As always, guys, remember, HERBALGY trophy winners, you never sing that. And as always, guys, remember, come on, you Spurs.
Come on,
Yo, Elanga, start doing something.